Hi, welcome back to another video. I got a gimbal. I feel such imposter syndrome holding such a fancy equipment. A huge thank you to Zhiyun for gifting me this Crane 4. I'm just going to use this video to tell you more about my experience using this gimbal and what are my thoughts on it. This is the Zhiyun Crane 4 gimbal. I just got it recently, about a few months back, and I've been using for said few months also. And first impressions when it comes to this gimbal, I was initially very overwhelmed by the number of parts that go into a gimbal. And thankfully there are a lot of tutorial videos online, so I followed a YouTube tutorial throughout to figure out how to put this whole thing together. There were a lot of different parts that I had to learn how to put together, learning how to balance the gimbal and also to calibrate it when I turn it on, and also how to use it, and of course getting used to the weight as well. So I actually received the Crane 4 combo kit, which came in this box, and yeah, it's just a really nice compact way to bring it around. Although realistically, I have not brought it out using the case yet, because if you're a new gimbal user like me, I think you understand the anxiety of having to put everything together on the spot. So in order to bypass all of that, I'm just bringing it around this way. Right now, the camera setup I've been using with the gimbal is my Canon R5 with the 50mm 1.2 lens. It's currently like my lightest camera setup because I physically can't hold that much weight. So I've opted for like the lightest that I can possibly go, although I still won't consider it light, but it's still manageable for me so far. That being said, the gimbal on its own is actually pretty lightweight. It's about 1.6 kg and it can support all your full-frame DSLR or mirrorless cameras. So even though my camera is pretty heavy, I actually feel quite secure having it on the gimbal. I'll talk you through some of my favorite features from using the gimbal so far. So this gimbal is a 3-axis gimbal. Axis 1, Axis 2, and then Axis 3. So each of the axes actually come with a balance light indicator. So it's just a quick light to give you visual feedback as to whether or not your camera is balanced. So if it's unbalanced, you'll actually blink red. And then if it's white, it means all is good and you're free to calibrate it and go ahead to shoot. And then next, because I got the combo kit, the Crane 4 combo kit, it comes with 2 extra accessories, which is this sling grip and then also the wrist rest. And what I like about these two things is because due to my physical limitations, like I feel pretty weak when I'm carrying the whole setup. It's quite tiring on my arms. I feel like I need all the support I can get. So if I were to just put my Canon R5 with the 50mm lens on this gimbal without the sling grip, I feel like it will be too much on my wrist. So the sling grip actually helps me have a double-handed grip for the gimbal. So yeah, it makes it a lot easier to maneuver and try to get the shots I want. And likewise with the wrist rest, if you can see here, yeah, it just kind of gives additional support on your wrist when you're carrying all that weight. And yeah, I think it makes a lot of a difference for me. There's a front dial in front of this gimbal, and this is totally customizable. So right now I use it to adjust the ISO because I feel like that kind of changes depending on the settings I'm in. The gimbals also come with different cables, and I've been using it to connect the gimbal to the camera so I can kind of shoot from the gimbal. So there are different trigger buttons that I can use to like focus, start recording, and then obviously the front dial to adjust the ISO while I'm shooting. So all in all, it makes it like very easy to use. And then there are also other cool features on this gimbal that I think you would find useful. So just now I had my camera on the portrait filming mode, but it's a very easy switch between portrait to landscape. So you don't have to worry if you are at a project and you have to shoot both portrait and landscape in the same shoot, because it's actually pretty easy to maneuver around. This gimbal also comes with a small fill light here, so you can adjust both the temperature and the brightness, which I think is very useful, because if I had to mount another light on top of my camera, I don't think I'll be able to handle the weight. Also for your equipment, like whether you are installing or like disassembling, the gimbal actually comes with this magnetic tightening wrench. So it actually comes from like under here, so it kind of sticks here, and like you always have it around with you if you're having the gimbal. So right now this is really useful when I'm like taking out the base plate from the camera. Battery life wise, this gimbal takes about 2 hours to fully charge. The website says 1 hour 50 minutes. I haven't personally timed it, so I'm just gonna say around 2 hours. And for runtime, it's about 12 hours. I've also haven't personally timed it, but I think so long as it lasts me a good shoot day, I think I'm more than happy. And I'm going to insert different behind the scenes footage of me using this gimbal, setting it up and things like that, so you can see how my experience was. You can definitely tell that it's heavy for me, but at the same time, I do believe if you're stronger, you can handle it. Overall, I haven't used this gimbal in any very complicated video projects. So far, I've used it to film 2 different brand videos with my content creator friend, and we are very pleased with the results. And I think last time, even though I would think the handheld video wasn't that bad, now when I look back at it, okay, I mean, if you're comparing it to video that's stabilized, yeah, it definitely makes a world of a difference. But I wouldn't say that every video requires a gimbal. I do believe that certain concepts suit handheld footage better, and then certain concepts suit, you know, all these stabilized footage better. So I do think it comes down to kind of like creative preference also sometimes, in terms of whether or not I want to use a gimbal during my shoot. You know, if I do require a gimbal, ideally I do want to work it into a lot more shots. You know, I don't want to bring my entire gimbal setup there just to take one shot, because I think that's a huge waste of effort and also not justifying me, you know, carrying the gimbal there to the shoot. At the end of the day, I do think that the gimbal is still a bulky piece of equipment that I need to bring around for shoot days, especially when I spend a lot of my shoots outdoors, like in the sun and it's hot and humid. So I feel like I do want to keep my setup and everything very efficient and light. So far my conclusion with the gimbal is definitely a great addition to my gear. I've never thought of myself as a videographer. I still kind of don't. But what was holding me back previously was that I didn't own a gimbal, so there were a lot of shots that I couldn't execute because I was filming everything handheld. So now that I have a gimbal, I think all these problems are gonna go out the window, so I'm very excited to see how this elevates my video content. I think I'm still not the most familiar with the equipment, but at the same time, I do think there's a whole learning curve whenever you acquire a piece of new equipment. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and also subscribe to me on YouTube if you want to see more video content. If you like to know where you can get your own Zhiyun Crane 4, you can see my description down below. Okay, and so that's all for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!